Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is a not so quick video, believe it or not, on just the usage of this design right here. It's the stamp called Seaside Cove. It's number 139H. And I've had a question on how to utilize this. And what I go into is the different methods of which, I use this in. And it's usually just used in portions, okay? This is a really large stamp, and it can cover, a full letter-size page of 8.5 by 11 lengthwise, because this is about 10 inches and 10 and a quarter or something like that from side to side. But I rarely ever use it in its entirety. I've probably used the whole thing, I don't know, less than 10 times in the entire existence. So I usually use it I see this more in terms of a left, center, right, and top portion, maybe. And that's the way I use it in this video here. This is the left side of it with some imagery, pine imagery. Sometimes when people think of, sea, they think of, the tropics. So we can use our tropical elements. I have a little bit more foreground down here, so I've used a little bit of, these rock textures in here to kind of fill in this area around the Seaside Cove. Just a real basic usage right here of using the center of the image. I don't have the rocks out here on the left and right. And here's some different examples of some different terrain used in it. In this one right here, I've placed this same Palm Island, but I've just used it on a right-left configuration and a little bit lower and higher configuration to represent depth. So we have depth within the image going back in perspective like that, and you can utilize kind of your registration of your imagery to create visual depth right on top of that Seaside Cove, so that's really good for that as well. It's a fun stamp to use. It's a very large stamp, and it's very versatile. This video gets kind of long because it's, as I mentioned, it's not some, it's a one stamp, but I see it more as like 4 different stamps as far as how you can utilize it. And I've utilized it in, I don't know, I'd say about 90% of the way in which you would use it. And I mentioned in this video, if you go to the stamp modules on our website and just bring up the 139H, there'll be a bunch of little thumbnail links on examples on how I've used it and how other people have used the design. And in one design, one person has actually taken this area of the design and just stacked it, not with this image in here, but they've made this area in here into like a river. So it was one of the most inventive usages of the stamp that I've ever seen, and it's on a big 8.5 by 11. I think it's even like portrait, so it's really long. And it's a really cool use of the design. So anyways, if you're ever curious about 139H, the Seaside Cove, and you want to see how it's used, you can watch this video. Okay, welcome to Stampscaping 101. I've had a request to do a video showing how to use this really large stamp that I call the Seaside Cove. And this stamp comes in 2 different sizes. This is the original size. I forgot the dimensions. It's like 3 inches and 3.5 or something like that by 10 and a quarter, I think it was. Really big. And you can see on my copy paper here, it pretty much, covers the width of an entire sheet of letter size, paper, standard paper. But, I mean, if you've seen these videos, rarely do I work in full size sheets. I've done a few of them in the past, but for the most part I'm doing cards. But this design has been drawn in this dimension because what I was thinking about when doing this design is there's a lot of different components in here in terms of the depth, the waves, and these rocks in the foreground here. And if I came up with a design that was this big, let's say, you know, more of like a standard size, there would be the issue of the horizon line and how to, you know, come up with a separate design, you know, for something like that. And then just the transition zone between the distant, you know, the background and the foreground in the design. I would have to do this, in other words, in like 1, 2, 3, 4 different designs back in the day, you know. And I didn't really want to do that. I wanted people to be able to utilize this stamp in whatever, you know, way, just by using portions of it. So this is like an extreme example of, you know, the utilization of certain parts of the design for what you want. Now, this is like a Lakeside Cove right here, and I've shown in other videos all you have to do is kind of not color in the bottom portion of it, you know, and you can stamp in some grass in here, and this becomes like a grassy meadow as opposed to a water, you know, element. All right? But in something like this, it's more a matter of not kind of eliminating certain elements within the scene, but just not stamping certain portions of it. So if you want the left side of this cove, you just stamp it over here. The middle is a different, you know, kind of zone, and then you have the right side. Sometimes people have only used the horizon up here just for this certain portion. So anyways, let's get to it. In this video, I'm going to show you some different ways, you know, all those different zones and what to do after you've made this impression. Okay? So, this is on a wood-mounted block, as you can see, but we just have it unmounted these days. More and more people, you know, we have like large acrylic blocks, you know, so I have this one right here that I can use. I mean, it doesn't cover the whole thing, but like I said, in 99 out of 100 instances when I'm using this, I'm only using it for portions of the design. Not that you can't use it big. We have samples of it online in the gallery section, or actually, well, in the gallery section and in the stamp module section, where you can see all these different designs, you know, and you know, some examples on how to use them. Okay, now in this case, I'm going to use the left side of it, okay, and you can go vertical or horizontal. Let's just go this one. We'll go with the horizontal, kind of a landscape. Ink up more than you think you're going to need, okay? Just so you don't kind of make an impression on your card, and then you pull it up and it's like you miss like a 1/4 inch out here, and then you're, I don't know, if you're trying to conserve paper or something like that, you use the stamp positioner to get that extra 1/4 inch or something. Okay, let's see. You can stamp, now you don't even have to stamp the whole thing on the card, but you can. In other words, I can have this hanging off the bottom, so it, you know, just goes right off the bottom of the card. I'll roughly aim to get the whole thing in there. Okay. Certainly a large design, so get full pressure across the area in which you're utilizing. Okay. All right, so we have that full coverage out here. You can see where it kind of transitions off over here into this kind of more illuminated area. All right. But let's do a couple more impressions before we get to the extra stamps, extra imagery to build on top of this. Okay, let's go with the horizontal on this one, and I'll use the center middle section of this stamp. So I probably won't be getting any of the rocks, I don't think. Or when I could, but on this one I'll just go for this. Let me see if I inked it up out here. I might not have inked it up enough. Okay, let's go roughly about like so. Maybe I should have stamped it a little bit higher to get more beach. I can always do it again. In other words, if I want more sky, stamp it lower. If I want more of the, the foreground beachy area, then I'll stamp it lower, higher, and leave less of a sky area. Okay, so we have this. Oops, I just smeared that part right there. But anyways, you can get the idea. Okay. I'll put something up here. It'll be a good example of what to do if something like that comes up. Alright, let's go for the right side of this cove. Now I'm stamping this as a foundation for other stamps to come, but you can also work this around other imagery. It requires some masking, and I'll try to do a little of that in this video as well. On this one, let's go for a little bit more beach, okay? So I'm going to have less of a horizon. I tell you what, let's do it like this. Let's do it vertical so I have more space up and down, okay? And let's go for about here. Could be anywhere on the design that you want. I don't know if this design took the longest to draw, but it wasn't just because of the size. It was kind of how to address the foreground in here, and when I figured out, to add those kind of rocks in the foreground, it kind of, it kind of resolved a lot of design issues for me, because you can work in a lot of depth, using scale, having larger things in the foreground and smaller ones in the background. But I think I was doing this design and I just kind of let it sit for a while, and until I figured that one out. I wasn't pleased with the the perimeter. Like I said, it was just kind of waves, and it was kind of weird to transition them, especially on the side of this. So the rocks were my solution. Anyways, okay, so we have 3 different areas of the design, okay? And I'll do something else in a bit here, but let's build on these foundations, okay? So, how about a tropical composition? Now, I'm not going to color these, or I'm going to try not to. A lot of times when I see what I kind of done, I feel like finishing it off. As far as a compositional foundation, I get the itch to color it in right away and see where it's going to go. Okay, now this is just kind of creating a cove, right? You see this isolated island out here. I mean, I could put more in the background too, or something like that, and make it a little bit more continuous. But what I've done is I've kind of, now you don't have to aim this exactly on the, you know, that horizon. You can come down into it more, alright? And that way you don't get these gaps in between. You don't need a positioner to line this bottom portion exactly on that horizon line, okay? That's not how these designs are made, you know, where, you know, that type of thing is required. I mean, if you wanted to, this is a tropical shoreline, you have these kind of waves crashing, right? I mean, they're not, I don't think they're supposed to be big waves. I guess you could put like a little person down here by scale. They'll look much larger, but as far as a compositional element goes, you can put in things like foreground, like some palm trees. This is kind of a, it's reiterating image form. You have palm trees in the background. You can put a couple in the foreground like this. I'm trying to pick this up without, I don't want to touch that area in there. It might smear again, but you know, that's a good compositional for it. Now I can make this night or day. I can put a moon or something like that. Now, a lot of times when people are first getting into landscape stamping, they're saying, well, I can't put something back there, like a moon or a sun or something like that, because the trees are there. But I think that it's almost more, I don't know, dramatic or something like that to have your light source coming from behind, you know, a silhouette of an object there, because those dark silhouettes will make whatever light source you have in the scene, could just be a cloud or something like that too, it makes those elements seem much lighter by contrast because you have something so dark next to it, right? So you can turn, like I said, night or day, whatever. Could be high noon. This area down here could be absolutely blue. If you're doing a sunset scene, I would stamp out my sun or something like that in reds, browns, or something of that sort, orange, and then I would color in the water that same color, because if you have a certain color, you know, light source, then I would do my reflective light accordingly, and that's what water tends to be. Sometimes people are thinking of water as always blue, you know, but it's more of the colors of the sky. If this scene was real overcast and gray, chances are the, you know, the water would be, you know, that same hue, that same tone, right? Okay, so that's a foundation there. That was more of a tropical one. Well, here, let me do another tropical one here. I'll show you how to place this kind of off to the side. We have more of the edge here. This is the right side of the scene, of the image design. Okay. And I'll have this Palms with Huts stamp. I need to clean up my work area again here. I'm doing so many of these videos, I just have a pile of stuff next to me at this point in time. Okay, this is the Palms with Huts, and let's see, how much did I ink up? Alright, let's go for about right here. Okay. And I'll have this coming in from the side. So see, even in these designs like this one, a lot of times people feel the need to stamp out, you know, a stamp in its entirety. But on this one, even this on this one, I'm not utilizing this portion of it over here. And the trees are going off the top of the card. That's what you can do with nature elements. They can, you know, I don't know if I would have like a, you know, an animal's head going off the top of a scene or something like that, but you can certainly have the landscape elements going right off the top. Okay, it's perfectly natural to do that, natural looking, you know, in terms of a scene. It's another reason I like landscape stamping is the freedom as far as the compositional building goes. Okay. A little bit of grass in the foreground. Something like that. And again, this is kind of like a peekaboo area for a like a moon or a sun or something like that. You can have it like a sunset back here. You can have like a sun coming up from right on the horizon. Just mask this off and the HUDs and put a sun down here. Let's see here. I can put some this area down here where it's just kind of blank. Now, I'm just doing these monochromatically here because I don't want to take too much time. It's about the Seaside Cove, but just in terms of different ways you can finish off, you know, different areas around this image. This is the Tiny Rocks large stamp, and let's say there were some kind of rock shapes. I would do this in color normally, but I'll just do it in black and white. I went for some second impressions, which look a little bit more gray, but you can see that in the foreground. And it kind of continues off the idea of these rocks, you know, coming forward. You know, dispersed in the sand a lot of times are rocks. Okay. Alright, so that is another kind of land foundation using tropical stamps. Let's see if I can do another using kind of a different terrain. Okay, this is the left side of the Seaside Cove here. And let's go, I tell you what, let's just do, I have this one sitting right here. Let's use this. Lakeside cabin. Who knows where this is? Could be, you know, you could do something on the Great Lakes or something like that. You know, there's waves and wind shop, you know, and lakes as well. Could be the Pacific Northwest. You know, this area in here. Okay, going with the cap. Now I am kind of aiming this a little bit on the horizon line up here. And so, go down about like so. Okay, here's the lakeside cabin. Amongst that, we have this area out here that needs some extra trees, I think. I'd use my pine. This is a perfect place for my pine rose stamp. I don't have it right here on the desk with me, so I tell you what, I'm just going to utilize, I'm going to try to utilize this portion of the stamp right here. I don't want two cabins, but let's just, you know, let's just try to maximize. Oh, here. I don't want these reflections down here. Let's try to pull some of this off. Right? Utilizing just the portion of the design for your purpose. Just like with any kind of nature elements. Okay, I'm trying to go over here as much as I can without getting that cabin in there. I don't know, you could stamp the cabin again. It would look like a, I don't know, like a park or something like that where you rent, you know, very similar looking cabins, unit number 1, 2, and 3 or whatever, you know, along the shoreline of this lake. Okay, so we have this other cabin coming in here. I mean, a row of trees. Some other trees right here in the back would look good. Or, like I said, you know, this leaves a little kind of a peekaboo area for some kind of sky element. Okay, right back in here. It'd be kind of cool to have the light coming through here. Actually, maybe that would be better than to kind of block it off. Okay, we have our foreground here. We can add some other pine trees or something like that to reiterate the pine trees going on in the background, but tell you what, just for a little bit of variation, I don't have a pine tree right sitting on my front of me, so let's just add a little bit of foliage here. This is the reed stamp. Okay, we have something like this. Could be, you know, could be fresh water, it could be salt water, whatever you want. Actually, that was kind of good with that reeds. Let me use the two different sizes of reeds on this one. Okay. So, we have that. We have our foundations working with the Seaside Cove using kind of left, right, and center. If you have a chance, go into the Stamp 139H stamping module and check out some additional scenes done with this stamp on our website, and you'll see a lot of different examples. I know someone that took this stamp and they've actually stacked it. They've used like this portion right here with rocks all along the side. I think it's an 8.5 by 11, but they've stamped it like this, and they've stacked it again like that and that, and what it looks like is a river coming down, just like the rapids area. That's by Jolene Meyer. Really amazing. See, I think it had a lot of bears in there too, or something like that. So it wasn't just like a single kind of impression of itself to make a scene, but she really used it in multiple, which is a perfect spirit of stamping, you know, and landscape element usage. But it was really fantastic. Okay, now let's see. Let me try to do something here. Alright, this is the Lakeside Cove. I'm just going to do it with this one. Or I can do it with this one. But let's do kind of the opposite of what we've been doing before, okay? In terms of stamping that Seaside Cove first and then building everything on top of it. Now I can do it here, but let's say I wanted to kind of fit that stamp in with other imagery, okay? Let's go with the Lakeside Cove. I don't know, where do I want it? Let's go with it about like right here. This is the Lakeside Cove large, by the way. Okay, got that. Let's do that again. Let's continue that off the page, okay? And we're just kind of overlap 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch or so into the previous impression so that we get this continuous shoreline as opposed to having these gaps in between it, okay? Okay, let's say we have something like this. Now we want to stamp the Lakeside Cove into this, okay? We'll need to do a little bit of masking, but it's going to be minimal, which I like in terms of a process, you know. When it comes to something like that, I don't like the tedium of super careful masking. So that's going to mask off my rocks, okay, like that down here. And that, alright? have a little bit of the rock showing. If we get a few dots of the Seaside Cove going into that, that's not going to be kind of obtrusive as far as a visual goes. Okay. I don't know if I inked up enough of that. Yeah, let me see. Let me get a little bit more. I'm using my fingers to figure out. I'm going to have it where I inked it up to. Okay, I think I inked it up between these two fingers right here. I just got to try to get the whole thing in there. Okay, I didn't think I'd need to mask off that little portion over here, but I think I do. Let's go. Alright. The tedium, right? I had to pull off that little bit there to cover up that other rock. Alright. I guess that wasn't too painful. Alright. Let's see if I can get in it. Hopefully this isn't dry on here. Alright, where did it go? Alright. Something like that. Get a little bit of extra pressure up around those masked areas. Paper towels are really thin, but it's still raised off the surface, so get that area in between the, or right next to the paper towel where it's raised and the rubber impression, okay? Okay, so, not bad. We have that going up that way, and it goes right into there, all right? See that? And then you get that type of foreground. Okay, so that's a way to kind of sneak it into your other elements in the composition. Now, the reason why I stamped these rocks first, okay, that Lakeside Cove first, is if, let's say, for example, I stamped out this as a foundation first, okay? I mean, the Seaside Cove. Let's take a look at here. If I stamp this out first, and then I stamp this over the top of it, okay, see that right there? That horizon would potentially be right, this horizon right here. This portion would be going right through my rocks, right? I'd have this dark line. That dark line would be going right through here, and potentially that right through here, because those rocks are open, right? Now, that being said, you could, knowing this stamp right here, if you know you're going to stamp this on top of it, all you need to do is just ink this up right here and wipe off a lot of this, okay? I'm talking about on the rubber, before you stamp it out so that it doesn't have these stronger lines. Then you just take the Lakeside Cove and plop it right on down there. That goes for any image, not just the Lakeside Cove, okay? If you know you're going to stamp some... Now, like on this one right here, there's more of a definitive line, okay? See the strong line, so if it goes on top of that line, it's not a big deal, all right? But any open type of imagery, you don't want to stamp, this too low and then stamp something over the top of it where something's going to show through it, all right? And again, I keep saying this, but you can put some kind of, sky element up here, or some clouds or whatnot. But that is kind of the gist of that stamp right there. Naturally, the smaller version of this, you'd be stamping more, more of a percentage of it, a higher percentage of it, just because you have more space. But this is really good as far as a texture goes and a foundation for a lot of different scenes, that you can add in. All right, so you get something like that. And this creates a nice opportunity in here. If you ever use this stamp, see these waves in here, and check it out online too, as far as the different samples go. But see this kind of spindrift coming off the top of these little waves in here? Kind of keep those light and hit the areas underneath them with a little bit of shadow, so you have these little areas of reflected light, on that, foamy spindrift coming off the top of the wave. And that's a really fun way to color the scene. You can even hit in here, in these areas in here, these little kind of shadows with a little bit of like a pen would be easier to use than like a foam tip if you're sponging in colors and things like that. But anyways, okay. For those that might have this stamp, I'll do one more scene too. I wanted to do this too. Okay, I'll try to make this quick, but I was going to say you can kind of make it a little inlet area as well. You don't have to use the just left-right portion of it, or in middle. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Okay. Okay. But let's go back to that kind of tropical scene. I'm just doing this to make it faster, but you can do things on both sides of this too. Okay, let's do something like, let's come in here like so. I'll go a little bit lower than the horizon, okay? This can be done with the pine tree type things as well. Okay, so I went lower. It's lower than the horizon line by about an inch. Now on this one I'll have it up here, but I'll go, and I'll have it roughly on the horizon line. Well, it's about a 1/4 inch lower. But you can see this right here. See, this is lower and this is higher. So this one is a little bit closer to us. And they call it Western perspective. Things that are, in certain configurations represent, things that are closer to us. But anyways, you can do that too. And that's kind of fun. You can do the same thing with the Lakeside Cove, and here you can stamp it lower, go a little bit higher. In this case, I don't think I would stamp those reflections, if I'm just doing that in this lighter area, because the reflections wouldn't be so still like that. It would be choppy. So kind of obscure that by dampening some of it off. Oh, this is a perfect foundation for things like boats and things like that. Let me see if I have my little sea kayak. Yeah, I do. Let's get this in here. Sailboats are good. Any kind of water element is kind of fun to use in here. Okay, let's put this like right here, maybe. Something like that. If you have images of people like, I don't know, like on a shoreline or beachy scene, kid playing with the, you know, like a bucket or something like that. That would be fun in here. If you're going to do things on the beach, to stamp your, you know, your Lakeside Cove much higher so that you have more sandy area below. Okay. Anyway, let's take a look at what we have here. This is kind of a long video, but that Seaside Cove large is, it's almost like, you know, 3-4 stamps in one. Not just because of the scale, but you know, by how you can utilize the different portions of it, you know, by dissecting it and using this and that, by just not stamping out certain parts of it. But anyways, higher in the composition for more sand. I would go even higher up here, like I said, if I had more things in the foreground that I wanted to use. Kind of a, this is the left portion of it, and you can see where I've just planted, you know, the pine tree types of elements out there. And all of them I tend to like a lot, you know, some foreground element. This is just using the Palm Island stamp. More palms in the foreground to reiterate kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a cohesive, thematic foliage. Okay, it'd look good in here too. You know, some palm tree out here or something like that. Where the reason why is because when you have waves like that, it means that the bottom of the you know, the surface is getting much more shallow, so you have this wave that's starting to crash here. So, but the very nature of kind of putting this in there, it says that you're kind of standing on shoreline looking out to this area. Okay, but kind of the utilization of the relation of the height, or the height at which you stamp something, to represent depth within this space right here. We're saying that this space, you know, by having smaller waves and larger waves in the foreground, it's going back in perspective. So you can utilize that perspective idea with, this is the same image, but, you know, these in theory would be a little bit larger probably if they were the same size palm trees, just in general. But this looks like, you know, near and far to me, just by stamping a little bit, you know, further down. And this is an example of just stamping out your imagery first and utilizing the Seaside Cove over the top of it and in the space in which you want, without getting obtrusive lines in the middle there. But like I said, the Seaside Cove could have gone down first if you just didn't color in, you know, that top horizon line. Okay, so that is an example of the Seaside Cove. It's a really large stamp. I don't know if I've ever seen a stamp larger than it before. Sometimes I think it was crazy to kind of do that, but anyways, it worked for me, you know. And it's a fun stamp to use, and I hardly ever use it in its entirety for an 8.5 by 11, but you certainly can. It's just a matter of kind of finding, you know, a block that's that large. All right. So thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed the Seaside Cove 139H.